throughout the show. If you have any questions that come up or comments, feel free to text them in. Steve will be answering throughout. We'll also save a few minutes at the end to answer any questions he may not be able to get to. And I will, with that, hand things over to you, Steve, with Ignite Selling, and you can introduce our other guests for us as well. Hi, Steve.
Absolutely.
Welcome.
Thank you so much, Christina. I appreciate it. And thank you for all of you who have made the time to join us live or who have made the time to listen to this recording after the fact. I'm grateful to be with you today. My name is Steve Gilden. I'm co-founder of a company called Ignite Selling, and we are a global sales enablement company. I am partnered with a couple of friends as well as great customers of mine that I'd like to introduce you to. I'd like to first introduce you to Kevin King. Kevin is the National Sales Director with the Nuclear and Precision Health Solutions at Cardinal, and currently lives in Denver, Colorado. Kevin, I'd like to ask you a question. I'd like to ask you two questions. One, can you tell us a little bit about what you do in your role, and give us maybe something that's exciting that's happened to you maybe over the last 30 days?
Yeah, Steve, it's great to be on the call. It's great to be part of L10 again. I spent about 30 years at Johnson & Johnson in multiple roles, up to and including Director of Sales Training and Leadership Development. So I'm well familiar with L10 and excited about being able to share some ideas from a different side of the equation, and that's the revenue side of the equation, being able to drive profitability and revenue for this this little billion-dollar piece of Cardinal Healthcare. But in terms of what's happened new and exciting, we entered a new human into the family this past week. His name's August Edward Stoner. He was born yesterday morning, about 8 pounds 7 ounces. So between Zoom calls and not being able to meet in the hospital and letting the other 2 grandkids welcome him home, it's been an exciting 24 hours. But it's good to be on this call and talking about something that I really believe in. So welcome, everybody.
Hey, thank you so much, Kevin, and congratulations again on the beautiful little August being brought into this world. So that's fantastic. Thanks. Alan, let's turn it over to you. Talk to us a little bit about what your role is. Alan Adams is the Senior Director of Commercial Acceleration at NeoTrack, another client of Ignite Selling. He currently lives in Chicago, Illinois. But Alan, can you give us a little bit more about what your role is and give us something that's exciting that's happened to you over the last 30 days?
Absolutely, Steve, and thank you for having me, and certainly hello to everyone that I haven't met. But Kevin, you're a tough act to follow. I don't have life that we've introduced into the world. But as Steve said, my name is Alan Adams, Senior Director of Commercial Acceleration at NeoTrack, which is a fairly unique title. It's not one that you see formally in a number of organizations. And the reason why we made up that title is because my responsibilities span over marketing in terms of market development and direct-to-consumer activities. Also responsible for strategic accounts, which is about $80 million in revenue, so not quite the $1 billion that Kevin is responsible for. And then finally, I also have responsibility for global sales training. My attempt to compete with Kevin's great thing that happened to him recently is my finalizing my family trip to Costa Rica. So I'm really excited to take that trip with the family, and I've got a 14 and a 12-year-old girls that are really excited to explore the topography and all that is that Costa Rica has to offer. So again, glad to be here, excited to be here, and thank you, Steve and L10 for having me.
Thank you, Alan. I think you both have some challenges ahead of you. I don't know if I'd be going to Costa Rica with a 12-year-old and a 14-year-old. That's going to have its own challenges. And of course, just changing the diapers of this new little baby August that Kevin's going to have to be managed with has its own little challenges as well. But both sound like a ton of fun. So guys, really, I do appreciate you joining us here today. Let's talk a little bit about where we're going. And actually, let me just give you a little bit of an overview of who Ignite Selling is as a company. So Ignite Selling, there's 4 things I'd like you to know about us. Number 1 is that every client that we work with, we begin with aligning the key behaviors to the executable strategies. We call this process a strategic learning alignment. And we're going to talk about this process today. We believe it's so critical before you start building out your competency models or sales training plans for 2022. You really should be looking at this. We're going to talk a little bit about that. In addition, one of the things that's unique about Ignite Selling is the fact that we do all of our sales enablement training through what we call interactive learning maps. It's an experiential peer-to-peer simulation-based learning environment. We don't believe that people learn through PowerPoint, particularly salespeople. The third thing that we have here is we have modularized all of our training. We did this actually before COVID. We don't believe that salespeople, or sales enablement professionals need to buy an entire program that's already developed because they may have already implemented certain skills or models that may conflict with it. So we kind of unbundle it. We have 13 different modules that clients will pick and choose those modules to build out the 2-year, 3-year curriculum plan that best drives the outcomes they're looking for. So they can buy modules that are only 2 hours or 4 hours long. And the last thing that really separates us is we recognize that we provide that every client that we work with has already done a lot of training. The question becomes is, can your people apply the skills that they've been taught to today's economic and climate that the world is providing? So we provide these capstone simulations. And if you're coming to the conference in L10 in Denver next week, Kevin King and I are going to be speaking about these capstone simulations. So the last thing I'll share with you a little bit about Ignite Selling is kind of judge us by the companies, by the company we keep. This gives you a little idea of the types of clients that we work with. You can see we're quite heavily in the medical device space, but we also play in the healthcare, in the pharmaceutical space as well. So that's enough about Ignite Selling. Where are we going with this partner presentation? Well, as I said, this is not an Ignite Selling infomercial. I know a lot of these 30-minute presentations that are paid presentations for L10 solution providers are designed to be kind of a commercial and infomercial on Ignite Selling. That's not what I want this to be. What we want to do is provide you and empower you to get more engaged with your sales leaders, to figure out how can you better align with them to create smarter sales strategies so that your solutions are in fact helping drive the outcomes the VPs of sales and the CROs are looking for. The reason I have Alan and Kevin here is because they both carry that revenue responsibility. And they both have been through this process in the past with their sales training and sales enablement teams. And we want you to walk away with something that's valuable today. We want to provide you with a simple, impactful tool that can help you align the sales goals, sales strategies, and the sales skills within your organization. So that's my hope for you today, is to do that. So got a question for you. In the chat box, if you would, type in the chat box what function you report up to. Is it HR, marketing, sales, or something else? Take a minute, type in the chat box who in fact you report up to. I see, thank you, Susan, sales operations, I appreciate that. Someone else, Vicky, okay. Operations, Richard, thank you so much, I appreciate it. Commercial ops, okay, I got it. Thanks a lot, appreciate that, JD. Let's see what else we got. Commercial ops, field medical, thank you, Allison, appreciate that. Thank you, Monica. Thank you, David, HR. So I appreciate you guys participating in this. You know, there's been some research that have been done by an organization that we partner with called HighSpot. And what HighSpot is showing right now is that according to HighSpot's annual sales enablement study, 83% of sales enablement professionals report up to sales leadership. All right, which is great from a number standpoint. However, the reality of it is, of those individuals that are reporting up through sales leadership, that could be sales itself, sales revenue, the chief revenue officer, sales operations. The unfortunate reality is that 49% say that collaboration between sales training, sales enablement folks, and sales leadership is below expectations. So think about that. Why might that be? Why is it, do you think, that the collaboration between sales leadership and sales enablement is not where it should be. Let me just throw that question out to the audience. We have a small group here. There's less than 15 of us. You want to have something to say, go ahead and open up your microphone and provide me your thoughts on as to why do you believe that the link and the collaboration between sales revenue responsibilities and sales training responsibilities are not quite at the expectation that they should or could be from a collaboration standpoint. Susan?
Hey, Steve, it's Susan. I think one reason is it's so hard to show ROI with sales training. And sometimes sales just doesn't want to pour into the training and not being able to see directly an ROI with it. At least that's just a thought.
I think you're spot on. I mean, it's difficult to come up with that ROI. And so therefore, we as sales enablement professionals sometimes feel inadequate to be able to provide that response. So no doubt about that. And that makes it maybe a little bit more difficult to collaborate. Anybody else have an opinion as to why that might be low?
I have another opinion.
Sure, Susan, go ahead.
I have another opinion is I think that some of the things that we want our sales professionals to do take time and energy, and sales leaders just want the sale done. And they don't want to they want the results, but don't want to take the time for the results, i.e. coaching, long-term, accountability groups, long-term leadership development training, things like that.
Well, I tell you, I think you're speaking the language of what you're going to hear Kevin and Alan talk about here in just a little bit, Susan. You're getting right on track. Let's take a look at some of this other research. It's kind of interesting. It is because of this. Why does this really matter? What's really interesting is when you look at this research, and 60% of the organizations that had above average collaboration with sales leaders, the selling skills are being better applied and win rates are 6% higher than the average. So just because of this collaboration, you're having better sales results, and quota attainment is 8% higher than the average. So that collaboration matters. But what's happening in that collaboration? Is it just conversations that are happening, or is it something a little bit more than that? Let's turn over to our experts here. I'd like to turn this over to Alan and to Kevin. Al, I'll turn to you first. How can sales training professionals, these sales enablement folks, get better aligned to collaborate with sales leaders? And I'm going to throw a little additional loop in there, a little additional amendment to this question is what is good collaboration? What does good collaboration look like? So how can they get better aligned, and what does it look like?
Sure. I think in every organization, it's going to be slightly different, Steve. I can tell you the success that I had as a sales enablement leader. As I mentioned earlier, I was both on the sales enablement side and now directly responsible for revenue generation, is to get at the table, because I think it goes above sales professionals or sales leaders. I think it's really about going further upstream and making sure that you're at the table for developing strategy with marketing, assuming that your organization follows that traditional functional roles where marketing is developing strategy, sales are responsible for execution, and we as sales enablement leaders are responsible for enabling how the execution takes place. I think the best tool that I've put in place when I was a sales enablement leader was to really educate those various functions on really what's happening in the market, what's happening in the sales force. What are some of the reasons? Because no sales force is absolutely perfect. What are the reasons for poor performance, and what data can I share with them as the reasons for that poor performance, both within the organization as well as macro? In today's environment, we're going through this phenomenon called the Great Resignation, and it's very difficult to hold on to really talented people. So what are we doing as an organization that both drives execution in terms of hitting our sales revenues numbers, but then also makes people want to stay in this organization? The other trend that's out there is this notion called employability. People no longer just want to be a number, no longer just want to be rewarded for just hitting their quota expectations. They want to be a part of an organization that's actually showing that they are developing in them. There's a lot of, or investing in them, in their own development. And there's a lot of data out there that we as sales enablement leaders can really be at the table and making sure at that table with not just the sales leaders, but also with marketing. And in my case, I got as high as our CEO and president and general manager, because this is in order to really generate revenue and make sure that we're delivering a solid brand out there in the marketplace. It's a cross-functional partnership, and they need to see that you are a strategic thought partner that can help them achieve not just revenue objective goals, but there's organizational health goals that I think are really key to great leaders.
Alan, thanks for your insights on that. I really appreciate what you just said there about the necessity to be perceived as a thought partner in the achievement of those metrics, those goals to which sales senior leadership has. In your case, you went all the way up to the CEO. You're not just a reactionary arm that provides support, but you are a partner in the development of the strategy in order to help ensure that everything's being done to execute the numbers that are being, the company's being held accountable to achieve.
And
Kevin,
Steve, I would
go ahead.
I would just say one other thing is that don't forget that as sales enablement leaders, we are also sellers, right?
Internally.
We're selling internally, that we're getting our leaders to think differently. A lot of times they want to put in place strategies that can't be truly executed. If you put them in the kind of the know, do, and believe, and really to Steve's point, and the value of this tool, it really helps you hone in on truly what's executable and what's realistic in terms of driving that strategy.
Yeah. Amen, Alan. Thanks for saying that. Kevin, from your perspective, how can sales enablement professionals get better aligned to collaborate, and what does collaboration look like?
Yeah, interesting, Steve. And I do think there's been an evolution from sales training to sales enablement, but it's got to be more than just a word differentiator from training to enablement, right? It's got to be connected to something executable and actionable, to Alan's point. And I think it has to start early, right? Mm-hmm. And not just marketing, but all the way up as far into the organization as you can. At Johnson & Johnson, we use something called OGSM, and it was interesting because our sales enablement group was tied to our process excellence group. Now, I won't get into the conversation around process excellence and sales enablement and which is better or which is the driver of the bus versus the passenger, but we used objectives, goals, strategies, and measures to ensure that whatever was happening at the field level, if somebody at the field pulled a thread, the idea is that somebody up in the executive offices or at the top of marketing, they would actually feel that thread being pulled because every goal was aligned all the way through the organization. So I think it starts with that kind of a structure. And if you can lead that effort as a sales enablement director through the marketing and sales planning and execution arm, that's number one. But number two, I think, to piggyback on Alan's point, it has to be executable. That means you have to have a field sales trainer program that's out there that you can use to extrude some of your great ideas and your practices. And then secondarily, it has to be something that sales professionals do every day. If they've got to take a break to go to their computer, their phone, their iPad, or a conference call, it means they're not generating sales. So it's got to be actionable, executable, and something that they're done every day. So start early and make it real, if I could break it down into just two key elements.
Thanks a lot, Kevin. I appreciate it. So what does that really look like? So how can you help identify and effectively align company sales goals, company sales strategies, and the critical on-the-job behaviors needed for success? What you heard Alan and Kevin talk about are some ideas on how to kind of collaborate. And what we want to provide you here in this session in the next maybe 10 to 12 minutes is some insight into things that you actually can do to have impact, to address some of those things that Susan mentioned earlier about that credibility, about demonstrating potential ROI. And so we work with people, our sales-enabled sales training clients, to teach them how they can help develop sales strategies that are based upon the revenue margin goals, how to focus on the strategies specifically designed to help drive the outcomes and the output that you're looking for, to help establish realistic objectives for each salesperson given a particular time period. You can read the rest on the slide, but we want to provide you with a tool to help you do that. And so let me talk to you a little bit about that. This tool, which I hope you walk away with, and I'm going to email you a white paper that kind of walks you through how to do this. But we encourage you to lead a strategic learning alignment meeting with your sales and marketing leaders, whether it be of a division leader or for your whole entire corporation. Let's just kind of take a look at what this looks like. It's 3 simple parts, but we build this from right to left and we implement it from left to right. So in this particular case, if you look at every organization has sales goals. And in many cases, those are non-negotiable. Your CRO, your director, your vice president of sales has been given the numbers for 2022 by now, if your fiscal year starts in January. And they might be things to increase margin, increase capital revenue, increase consumable service, whatever it might be. They have metrics to which they're being held accountable to. You can't negotiate those. Those are what has been come down from Mount Sinai and everybody needs to follow, okay? The question becomes is, what are the sales strategies your team needs to execute in order to achieve those goals? So we often ask sales leaders and marketing leaders, what has to change? What's different going into 2022 that's different than 2021? In other words, is it doing more of what you did last year? Is it about doing something different? And I'll tell you guys, what's shocking to me, and we work with some of the largest companies in the world today, when I ask the question, is it about doing more of the same or doing something different? They often say, doing something different. I'll say, give me 2 or 3 ideas, strategies that you think your team needs to implement in 2022 to ensure you're going to achieve those sales goals. Crickets. These are people that have nearly $500,000 in revenue. And you're asking them a very simple fundamental question. What are the strategies that you need to implement in 2022 to achieve those sales goals? But it's not hard to get them to start talking about that. And in the white paper that I'll send over to you, it kind of gives you some questions and things that you can use to walk through. But what you really want to get them to do is to start focusing on some key sales strategies. Things such as increasing revenue of a specific product, maybe by 15%, by focusing on those customers that are spending greater than $500,000 a year on your older system. Okay, that's a strategy. In many cases, we ask the question, what is your strategy? They'll say, I need my people to sell at a higher level. That's not a strategy, that's a behavior. Okay, it's not about selling at the C-suite, that's a behavior. That's something we want them to go do. And then we ask the question, do you want them to sell at the C-suite of every account in their territory? They'll say yes. I'll say, is it realistic? They'll say no. So which accounts should they be targeting? And so we work with them to simply say, maybe we want to target all those customers that are currently spending greater than $500,000 on your older technology, or maybe on a competitive solution. But we get them to start thinking about the strategies, and we want to quantify that. Susan, you mentioned earlier about the importance of establishing an ROI. When we can go ahead and get sales leaders and marketing leaders to give us these kinds of metrics, they're saying that if we can increase revenue for product X by 15%, by getting our sales team to focus on those customers in their territory that are spending greater than $500,000 on our older system, we're capturing those leading indicators that are telling us if in fact, if they do this, they're likely to achieve that sales goal. So the question becomes, after we have these things, is what are the critical on-the-job behaviors the team needs to be proficient in order to execute that strategy? And now this is where everybody kind of comes to life. This is the easy question. But they'll often start giving us competencies. They'll start giving us things that they think their sales team is weak in. I'm like, stop for a moment. I want you to answer the question. Will these on-the-job behaviors, if your team is proficient in these on-the-job behaviors, can they achieve these sales strategies? The answer is yes, you're right on track. And we typically don't come up with more than 6 to 10 on-the-job behaviors. Why? because you typically don't need more than 6 or 10 critical on-the-job behaviors to execute the 3 or 4 strategies that we've just established. Now, by having this map done, we're simply now telling sales enablement professionals, let me just get this straight, Alan and Kevin, directors of sales. If in fact I can make sure that our team is proficient in these on-the-job behaviors, they should be able to execute these sales strategies, which will help you achieve your sales goals. Is that right? They'll say yes. Terrific. Now what we need to do is to build a reinforcement plan or provide new training, new accountability around those 6 to 10 behaviors. And guess what, guys? In many cases, you've already taught it. Okay? It's not about going back and reteaching. It's about helping them understand how to apply those skills to this sales strategy. So, Alan, Kevin, talk to us about this. You guys have done this with me. Okay, we've gone through this together. My company has come in and helped you guys. Talk to us about how has this strategic learning alignment matrix supported the revenue growth plans for your sales leaders? And we've got about 5 minutes left, guys.
Sure, I'll jump in, Steve. 2 words: clarity and focus. You know, sales managers, it's clarity on what to coach. And if you think about it, any given organization, we throw so many things at our sales managers, and it can often be overwhelming as to what they should focus on. And by providing them with this strategic learning alignment matrix, we can point to the specific strategies and tactics that we're going to hold them accountable to. And it also offers focus on what behaviors they need to zero in on when they're coaching their respective sales teams.
Yeah, Steve, I like the matrix too, in that, first of all, I don't mind thinking right to left because I usually think left to right. So it breaks me out of my original mold. But I think this is a little bit about not what, but how, right? So when we think about it, what's always easy? The how is the hard part, right? And then when we break down how into one more level of granularity, we think about how in terms of lagging indicators and leading indicators. And I'll tell you what, I think every organization can figure out what sales versus quota looks like in September or October if you're sitting in November. But the real question is, what do you need the activities and the efforts and the competencies to be in January? The daily things of how you're going to get the work done, not just what the work is to be done. So I think it's all about building the how structure, the competencies and the skills around the how, and then building in leading indicators to be able to drive daily performance and daily action to drive revenue growth and profitability.
Yeah, outstanding, guys. So looks like Susan, you provided a question up here. Actually, but let me get to your question in just a moment here. Let me just provide this last slide here, which is kind of what should why should this be important to you? This type of process provides, you heard Alan talk about it just a little bit ago, but clarity, okay? But clear line of sight between the sales goals, sales strategies, and the selling behaviors. It provides the key metrics for us to be able to measure impact proactively. Provides a sales manager around clarity regarding focus on what to coach. And overall, it improves business results. So this is the reasons why this simple little process can be so impactful. Here's a little information on how you can find this, how you can download this information. I'm going to email out this white paper and this slide deck to everybody, so you'll have a copy of it. But I'd like to go to open it up for questions, and I'd like to start off with the question from Susan. She says, "How are you measuring behavior?" And Susan, can I get a little clarification? When you're saying measuring behavior, you talking about measuring behavior application and proficiency?
Yes. So, and are you doing that like on a scale of proficient, mastery, and development opportunity, or how are you measuring that? Like, how are you looking at, okay, this is where the person is right now. And then I think you said what, quarterly, you're looking at it again and again. How are you measuring either growth or decline?
Yeah, when clients have a baseline, in many cases, when we build these things out, we ask the sales team, we ask the sales leadership, how well is the team able to achieve these particular on-the-job behaviors? And they're all over the map. Some people do it well, some people don't do it so well. All right. So sometimes what we'll do is we'll create a baseline assessment of what does that actually look like. And then what we'll do, hang on, so let me stop my timer here. And then what we'll do is we'll come back and we'll reassess those skills, but we assess those skills in the context of their ability to apply to that strategy. And we know whether or not they're able to target, let's say one of the strategies is to target those customers that are currently using an older system spending greater than $500,000. Well, because it's so specific, Susan, we'll know right off the bat, either they're making it happen or can't make it happen. If they can't make it happen, it's time for the manager to kind of figure out why. And there could be any number of reasons why that might be. They're not leveraging their advocates, they're not asking the right questions, whatever the case might be. And it gives us some quick indication as to where the performance gaps in their ability to achieve that particular sales strategy. So I want you to kind of think about this differently. This is not a competency assessment. We want to know, can they perform these on-the-job behaviors to perform that sales, to execute that sales strategy? And we know it pretty quickly because we look at it, on a quarterly basis, whether or not they're achieving that number or not achieving that number. That help you?
Yeah, I think our organization is just a little different. I mean, our sales cycle time can even be up to 18 months. So
Sure.
It's hard to, but I hear what you're saying. Yes.
Okay, terrific. Any other, and Susan, you and I can talk a little bit about this offline if you want to go a little bit further into this as well. So any other questions?
I'll come see you next week.
Oh, good. I look forward to seeing you. Thank you, Susan.
Steve, I would just say my final comment regarding this, having been on both sides of the table here, is that by doing this exercise, for instance, when I was at Medtronic in the enablement side, this helped me establish equal stature, right? There's typically this notion that there's this hierarchy in an organization. And sales usually is king, right? And rightfully so, and I kind of get that. But they need to see you, as I mentioned earlier, as a strategic thought partner, as very much a part of the team, and taking them through this process gets them to think differently and elevates and puts you on equal stature with your counterparts at the senior leadership team, whether it's sales or marketing.
Oh, yeah, right on point. Any final comments from you, Kevin?
No, I think you guys are right. Start early, go as high as possible. Isn't that what Timothy Leary said? Get as high as possible for as long as possible.
There you go. That's right. Well, guys, thank you again. Really do appreciate all of you participating in this, and those of you whom are listening to this recording after the fact. Kevin King is going to be with me. We're going to be speaking on talking about the power of simulations and how do you drive stronger applications of the previous skills to which you're already teaching. He's going to be with me in Denver for the L10 conference for those of you who are attending live. So thanks again to everybody. I really do appreciate you participating in this session, and I look forward to seeing and speaking to you guys again in the future. Bye-bye.
Thank
Take care.
you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Steve. Thanks, Alan. Thanks, Kevin. Thanks, everyone, for joining. Looking forward to your session on site.
Thank you so much.
See
Appreciate it.
everyone soon.
All righty. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.